stand and we open prayer this morning. Let's pray. Jesus, again, Lord, as I come before you, Lord, we just say thank you for all you've done for us. Thank you for the group, the youth rally last night, Lord, and the hearts that touched, Lord. I pray for this service this morning, Lord. I pray that your spirit moves, Lord. I pray that we open our hearts today and soften our hearts today to hear what you have to say, Lord. And I pray that when we leave today, Lord, we know we're going in a mission field, and we know we're going to be better equipped for being here today, Lord. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Your strength did find me at my weakest. Your grace poured out in my despair. When I feel lifeless, tired, burned out and defeated, your perfect love will find me there. You call my name, you made all things new. Oh, I was there, look at me now, I found revival in you. You gave me life, 'cause that's what you do. Oh, I was there, look at me now, I found revival in you. While dreams were breathed into existence, my broken heart began to beat. There's no more fear and doubt, my bitter disappointment became my greatest victory. And you call my name, you made all things new. Oh, I was there, look at me now, I found revival in you. You gave me life, 'cause that's what you do. Oh, I was there, look at me now, I found revival in you. And it's all because of you, all because of you. I am alive in Jesus, I am alive. It's all because of you, all because of you. I am alive in Jesus, I am alive. You call my name, you made all things new. Oh, I was there, look at me now, I found revival in you. You gave me life, 'cause that's what you do. Oh, I was there, look at me now, I found revival in you. Oh, I was there, look at me now, I found revival in you. Oh, I was there, look at me now, I found revival in you. Good morning. Hey, why don't you take a minute and find somebody that you haven't talked to this morning, shake their hand, tell them how glad you're going to see them.
Morning, how you doing? Good, how you doing? Morning again. Morning, Lance.
It comes down to something simple. Last night we were talking, and the pastor that was here, Cody Briggs, he said this. He said, what is the difference in a room where you've got one person over here who's totally falling for the Lord, they're totally worshiping, they're going all out, and another guy over here in his pockets? It's that the Holy Spirit's moving the same in all the places at the same time, but this person over here has made himself ready, and he wants what's being served. He wants it. When do you eat the most? When you're hungry. You know what I'm saying? When you're hungry, you eat the most. So I got to come hungry for God's word. I didn't just come in here to sit back and see what's on the menu. I came in here to eat this morning. I came to get some of what's being served, and I want to give God back everything. So when we worship, I say, Lord, whatever happens, whether we're in drop dead silence, whether it's my favorite song, whether it's my least favorite song, whether it's on key, whether it's off, it doesn't matter. I've come for you, God. I've got a hunger. I've got an expectation. One of the things he brought out last night, he said, if Jesus were here today, and he was phrasing things the way things are phrased today. You know the verse that talks about why you look at the speck in your brother's eye when there's a plank in yours? He said, I think he would say it something like this. We need to put down our magnifying glass and pick up our mirror. We're not everybody else. I found out that if we would just draw a circle on the ground and get inside that circle and pray for everything in that circle, God will work out everything else. Yeah. We don't need to be trooping over ourselves trying to help somebody else. You understand what I'm saying? I'm ready to preach this morning. I'm prepared. I'm ready. But if God wants to do something different, I'm ready for that too. Amen? Amen. Let's give him our best over these next few minutes. I'm going to ask the ushers if you would come forward at this moment to receive this morning's offering. If you're a guest of ours, we do not need anything from you today other than for you just to be open to what the Lord is doing in your life spiritually. What he wants to say to you this morning. Wes, let's pray for a minute.
Father, we thank you this day, Lord. Another opportunity to be in your house today. We just pray for the worship team as they lead the song, Lord. And each one in here will worship in their own way, Father, and glorify your name. And we just pray today for your message. We would just have open hearts, open ears, Lord, and just soak that in. Father, we pray for the offering, tithes and offerings that you would just use them for the upbuilding of your kingdom. All these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
We need your supernatural
take each step with your confidence, 'cause I am yours. I am yours. Let's sing that again. My life is built on your faithfulness. My hope is held in your promises. I take each step with your confidence, 'cause I am yours. I am yours. You never fail. You never will. I'll trust your name for greater things. You will come through. You always do. I'll trust your name for greater things. You cleared a way in the wilderness. You brought me back from my brokenness. You took my shame and you buried it. What you done, I won't forget. You never fail. You never will. I'll trust your name for greater things. You will come through. You always do. I'll trust your name for greater things. I will not fear, for you are with me. I see this fight from the victory. No power of hell can stand against me. 'Cause I've seen this fight from the victory. I will not fear, you are with me. I'll see this fight from the victory. No power of hell can stand against me. I've seen this fight from the victory. You never fail. You never will. I trust your name
camp, when you get away from maybe revival experiences that you had, that away. But what I've realized is the devil can't take away what he did not begin. He didn't begin it, so he can't take it away. So that tells me there's only one other person that can take it away, and that's me. I can stop doing the things that I was doing. Let me tell you, the Christian life is this way. It is. You can be experiencing revival and not even explain where it came from. And then at the same time, you can be digging down as deep as you possibly can and not feel anything. And it's like that. But God uses it to reveal who we are. And he brings out our character through the midst of his process. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. But I say, don't worry about it. You got things going on in your life. There's things coming against you. Clean out way in your closets. Get in it and start praying. Quit thinking that you're going to win a battle by not fighting. Sometimes we got to get in the closet. We got to get down deep. We've got to get along with God. We've been saying it all year, go to the secret place, get 30 minutes alone with God, get 5 minutes alone with God. If you're not got 5 minutes right now, I'm saying you're going to have to dig if you want to get to where he is. He's not coming to the lazy. He's coming to the hungry. And I want to be hungry. And you got to be prepared to be hungry. Because if you get relaxed, if you sit back, you'll realize in just a little while that you're not where you used to be. When you quit going to the Word, I'm telling you, every day that I get up and I read the Bible, I do not have a revival experience. It's 5 in the morning. I don't want to get up. I've got to go to work. Everybody else is asleep. But I'm reading. Why? Because I want to get what's there for me. Because it's who I was created to be. All right, if you have your Bibles, you're in Genesis chapter 37. Today what we're talking about is the process to the promise. And I'll show you a scripture before we go to Genesis 37. It says this, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. And they shall walk and not faint. And we love this verse. I hear so many people, this is their victory verse. Well, what you got to understand is it says they will be renewed. But I love the part that it doesn't say. It doesn't say when. It doesn't say when. You say, oh, I'm going to be renewed, and you think it's instantaneous because in our culture, everything is right now. Yeah, sometimes it's a process. Sometimes the first time you pray for something, it doesn't do anything. It's amazing that foundations don't shake and revivals don't happen the first time that we pray, but sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. See, when we read these type of scriptures, we get excited about the promise of God, but we forget that God is a God of process. And he does more in the process than he does in the promise. He builds us. He builds our character. Some of the things coming against you in the process of your life right now, they may be binding. But I can promise you this, they're not damning. They may be temporarily setting you back. They may be binding you. Like right now, you may be going through a tough season of your life. It may be your health. It may be your marriage. It may be your family. It may be your job. But let me tell you, just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's dead. You know, it's binding, but it's not damning. See, they may be uncomfortable, but they're not impassable. It's like, oh, this is so tough. And I've heard people say this, listen, I just don't know how I'm going to go on. Well, you're going to put one foot in front of the other. You're going to pick up your belt like this. You're going to straighten yourself out. You're going to walk. Because when I take a walk in faith, I'm walking toward the believing that I'm going to inherit the promise. But if I'm just going to stand still and I'm just going to give up, then there's no hope for me. I'm ready this morning. Sure, I have things in my life. I'll be honest, health issues probably bother me more than anything. I probably have very few, but they bother me. And sometimes with my health, I hate it. And I'm just like, God, I know that you have the power to remove it. And things that they rob me of my time. But you know what? They can't rob me of my deliverance. And they don't weaken my deliverer. You know what I'm saying? I don't like these things. But they can't rob me of my ultimate deliverance from God. And you know what? It doesn't weaken who he is. Sometimes in light of my weakness, you know what? He reveals his strength. I don't like it. It don't feel good. But you know what? I've been in pain before. And I've been hurting. And I was like, oh, I just hurt so bad. And then just feel the presence of God just come over me from my head and my toe. That I don't feel when I'm feeling good, feeling great, and everything's happy and everybody's smiling. When everything's going right, it's real easy just to depend on that. But when I'm hurting, when things aren't going well, when work's bad, when home sometimes is difficult, it's like at the end, God reveals his strength. Sometimes when I feel beaten and tired, he shows me that he's loving and kind. And you don't see that through good times. Good times, it's just like, man, I just can eat it all. I can just enjoy it all. I'm just so glad to be here. And then the next day I forget about it. And that's all. This is good. But when things are difficult, we tend to lean on God. And sometimes we wait till then to just begin. It's like, oh, everything's good. And then your wife comes in and it's like, I just don't know if I can keep doing this. I don't know if I... And then all of a sudden we're like, God, oh God, help me, Lord Jesus, help me. I'm going to starve to death because I can't eat all these microwave meals. And then all of a sudden we're having a prayer meeting every day. You know, when your kid comes home and he does something really smart, you know, and says something really ugly, and he walks off to his room and you're like, who is that kid? Then all of a sudden it's like, Lord, I'm praying in the midnight hour. Lord, you're going to have to bring revival or I'm going to kill him. You know, see, my temporary trials may seem like a restrictor. It may seem like it's restricting me, but it's actually a revealer. My temporary trials, they reveal where I'm weak and they show where he's strong. They also reveal the depth of my character. And I like to think I've got some character. I like to think that I can withhold some difficult times. But see, if the trial never comes, how will I know that I'm able to do it? It's like if I train in the gym and then I never go out there and do the UFC 5, I'm not going to know if I'm tough or not, right? So I'm never going to know if I'm tough or not, guys. But what I'm saying is, unless you go and you put it to the test, how are you going to know that it's happened? You know what? And you say, oh, Lord, I want to be purified. I want to be righteous. Well, if you're not purified by fire, how are you ever going to know? It's the fire that burns out the impurities. And you say, oh, I hate going through difficulty. Yeah, but it's revealing who you are. The test, it tests my strength and it tests my faith. See, the route to the promises of God may not look like you think, but it doesn't change your destination. You say, oh, God's promised me this. One day I'm going to have it all. One day God's going to put me in this position. And then, you know, we look at the route and we say, God, working at 7-Eleven, this doesn't make sense to me. This doesn't look like part of your plan. And the whole time God's going, just wait, just wait, just wait. See, the travel in your destination to where God has carried you is your teacher. And the pathway to where you're going is part of the process. Don't forsake the importance of your present placement. Let me say that again. Don't forsake the importance of your present placement. You say, well, I'm just doing nothing in life right now. Don't forsake what God's doing even in that. Say, oh, my job, this is just a stepping stone for me. I'm only going to be here for 6 months, Pastor, and then I'm going off and I'm going to make $40 an hour. Well, great. But don't forsake today while you're making $750. You know what I'm saying? It's a movement toward what God is doing. No one gets to the top without climbing each step. And there is nothing more tiring than climbing steps. Anybody ever been in stadiums, you know, where you run? It'll kill you. And it wears you out. Steps are exhausting, but what I love about steps, and if we want to look at this spiritual today, what I love about steps is they take you to the next level. Steps take you to the next level. What? I'm all of a sudden on a higher plane now. So if in my pathway to what God is trying to get me to, if it takes me up steps, guess where it's taking me up? To another level with the Lord. There's times it's been difficult things I've had to face, and you know what they were? They were steps. And I can do things better today than I could before I took those steps. Did they wear me out? Did they weaken me? Did they make me feel like I was going to die? Yes, every time. Sometimes I even laid in bed at night and the devil told me, he said, you're going to die. You're going to die. This way that you feel is death. Death is coming for you. And you know what? Eventually I just said, well, you know what? If it does, it does. But until then, I'm going to keep climbing. The devil can't make you afraid. Like, once you get rid of fear, if you don't fear anything, there's nothing you can't do. I've got some men who didn't fear anything. They didn't fear death. They didn't fear man. They didn't fear anything. Snakes, anything, things that I'm afraid of. But they didn't fear anything. You know what I thought? I thought they're unstoppable. Because all you can do to them is kill them, and they don't even care if you do that. And they're just wild men. And they have wild purpose. And I wish there was more men like that in the church. Unfortunately, I meet those kind of men out in places where you don't want to be. People that want to fight you. You've met a few people that didn't care. Huh? They'll fight you. See, stress, what it does is it produces results. Have you ever noticed that? You know the reason that muscles grow? Stress. You put muscles under stress and they become in a permanently flexed position. See, when muscles are under stress, they get bigger. As you can tell, I don't stress a lot. Life stress will build you. Life stress will build you. They will. I was listening to T.D. Jakes, and I send these videos to these guys, and I know some of them get to listen to them, and some of them don't. I have a job where I sit at a desk, and so I keep headphones in and listen. And T.D. Jakes was comparing the difficulties of life to the process of shooting an arrow. And this is what he said. He said, it is the force to which you have been pulled back that determines the height of which you will fly. It is the force to which you have been pulled back that determines the height of which you will fly. Some of you went through terribly crushing things, but it carried you to heights that you would have never reached in your faith had it not been for the pulling and the pressure of life. And we said, oh, I hated it while it was here. Oh, but I love the results. A church that's been through fire will grow. And you got to realize this. This is something else I'm realizing. And I'm trying to put things in perspective in life. Because it's real easy to look at somebody and get mad. Say something happened, and I go, man, Austin was just done that thing. And then I get mad at Austin. I'm thinking about Austin, which I'm getting mad at. But I think about it, and I'm over there, and I'm like, man. And then it hits me. The devil would love for me to hate Austin. The devil would love to divide our friendship. Because if he can divide us, he can conquer. He would love to separate marriages and come right in the middle of them and get them thinking that they're fighting each other when really it's an outside force that's whispering into both of their ears saying, do this, they don't like you, they don't care, they don't want to be here. And he's just whispering these things in your ear. It's like the little kid that's in 7th grade and he won't fight anybody, but he'll talk noise the whole time two guys are going at it. Oh, that guy hates you, he thinks you're mean. Oh, you think you're better than everybody. These two guys are just fighting, that guy they're just talking noise. That's the way the devil does us. He gets into the middle of our situation and then divides. Why? Because if he gets to split him apart, he can conquer him. We got to realize we ain't fighting each other. There's another plan going on that we're not aware of. And he's taking a little bit of the things that matter to us and a little bit of the things that matter to them, and he's trying to use it to tear us apart. See, what I found is you're not building your life, but your life's building you. Your life's building you. Think of how many options your life is presenting for you each day. Simple decisions that propel the direction of your day. And wonder this, how many breakthroughs are you missing because you're choosing the same things over and over? Think about it. Say, I'm not maybe 140 pounds than I want to be. Well, maybe it's the choice of what you're eating. You know, you say, oh, I'm not the person I want to be. Well, maybe it's the person that you're letting affect you every day, and you choose to let them have victory over you every day. Or maybe it's yes to my Bible or no to my Bible, and it's building me either way. Maybe it's I know it's wrong, but I'm still entertaining it. Anybody got any things like that in their life? You say, I know it's wrong, but you know what, just a little bit of it ain't going to hurt me. And what you don't realize is it's poison in the root. And you're wondering why your tree doesn't bear fruit. And you're killing it at the root level. Oh, man. I'm just getting started. If you're in Genesis chapter 37, Joseph is here. And Joseph is 17 years old. He is a child that is favored by his father. His father is Jacob. And so he's favored by him. And his father loves him more than all his brothers. And Joseph begins to have dreams. And in these dreams, they're basically kind of wild because it's like, hey, one haystack's here and all these other 11 or 12 more bow down. And it's symbolic of his brothers bowing to him, yet he is one of the smallest. And people don't like that. When you start saying, hey, you're having a dream that you bow down to me. You'd be like, well, what's that about? And that's kind of how they were. They were like, oh, I don't like this. And he begins to have dreams of his brothers bowing to him. And when he shares the dreams that he feels like are from God, he's hated. Let's go together. Genesis chapter 37. Here we go. Jacob lived in the land of where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made an ornate robe for him. And when his brothers saw their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this, I had a dream. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose up and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. And his brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told his brothers, listen, I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. And when he told his father, as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept this in mind. So he has this dream. It's obviously, as we read the word, I mean, they didn't know it at the time, but it's a dream from God. So Joseph's brothers hated him because he shared the dream that God had given him. And this is what I know. Just because you feel God promised it to you doesn't mean everyone else will accept it. There's things I've known that God said, and other people looked at me and said it'll never happen. And it happened whether they wanted it to or not. And they didn't like it, but it happened. And so his brother hates him to the point that they wish for him to die. And they have every intention to kill him. And they want to kill him because why? They're jealous of him. Now I want you to look. We're talking about the process here. This is Joseph. He's in the middle of the process of life. God has revealed a promise to him, but now he's got to walk out life knowing that there's a promise on his life, but walking out the steps of getting it. It didn't happen overnight. His brothers didn't get up the next day and say, hey, here we are, we're here to bow before you, do whatever you must. Let's see. So Joseph, after his brothers were found near Dothan, they're out working. And Joseph goes out to check on them. They saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. And here he comes, the dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. And when Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. And Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. He was going to come back after they left, and he was going to rescue Joseph. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and they threw him into a cistern. And the cistern was empty, and there was no water in it. It's like a well. And he sat down to eat, and they sat down to eat their meal. They looked up, and all of a sudden they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take it down to Egypt. And Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites, and do not lay a hand on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. They took him and they sold him. Now look. Now Joseph, let's see, we'll come on. So they take him and they sell him. They put him out there. See, sometimes we're hated because God has his hand on us. I've seen that happen. Sometimes we're hated because God has his hand on us. And I've had great favor in life. I've held positions that others wanted because I had the favor of God. And I know it was not my skill, it was just what God wanted to do at the time. And I've been made fun of behind my back. I've been plotted against. I've been lied about. And I had attempts for people to destroy me. They wanted to take me down with lies. There wasn't any truth in it. Because why? Because I decided that I was going to do what was right with the Lord. You see what I'm saying? Just because you choose the path that God has for you doesn't mean it's going to be an easy one. See, there's a great there, you got to understand there's a process to get there. And if you give up in the process, you'll never hold the promise. But when God has a plan, the process may be painful, but the promise is guaranteed. So Joseph experienced sovereignty at the cost of slavery. Do you understand that? Sovereignty at the cost of slavery. His brothers are out to kill him, and then God intervenes in a way man does not like, in a way that is painful. And Joseph wanted to go home that day, and he won't go home that day. But God is using our circumstances to construct the path to his promises. So Joseph is supposed to die that day. His brothers want to kill him. And in the sovereignty of God, he sends a slave owner to come through, and they sell him to the slave instead. And if you know the end of the story, it makes so much sense. But at the time, when you're the one in the cistern, it probably doesn't feel like this is God's plan for my life. And some of you right now, you're in the process of your life, and you're looking at your life, and you say, this cannot be God's plan for my life. And I'm saying, you know what? You're not in the cistern. You're not sold to slavery. And you're not headed off to a foreign land when you were favored by your father. See, look, the process doesn't always feel good, but it carries us to the promise. And as Joseph's brothers are preparing his death, slave traders appear in what would seem like abandonment by God. Well, I mean, wouldn't you think if you're in a system you're getting sold to slavery, you think that's abandoning. God has abandoned me. It's actually appointment. Joseph could not be who he was and where he needed to go if he didn't first go through this. You say, oh, there's so many times in life I feel abandoned. Well, maybe it's not abandoned. Maybe it's appointment. So Joseph is sold as a slave. But I thought everyone was going to bow to you, Joseph. I thought all your brothers would serve you. You know, I bet if we're looking at this part of Joseph's story, it seems pretty sad. But this is what I'll tell you this morning. You cannot judge what God is doing in your life based on one season. Some of you say, thank God, I've had some bad seasons. You can't determine what's going on in your life. You cannot predict the outcome of a book based off of one chapter. You say, I'm down, but I'm getting up. A movie is not told in one scene. Can I tell you this morning? Some of you in here, you think, you know, I'll never be good enough for God. God had plans to use you when He created you. You're not deterring His plan. Or He's not deterring your plan. You're deterring His plan. You're good enough already. You were good enough today that you breathed breath into life and He brought you through. He wasn't saying, oh, there's somebody that's been born, I'll take them now. He was thinking before that, and He was saying, oh, your mother, your grandmother, all these people, you're going to come through them. And you know what? I'm going to do something through you. And I already have a purpose and plan for you. Will you yield to that purpose and plan? Joseph serves his season. What I tell you, you got to remember the importance of today. Joseph serves his season. So Joseph is sold as a slave, and he goes into Potiphar's house, who's high-ranking official in Egypt. He said, I cannot, and if I look at it, I cannot imagine another way that Joseph ends up ruling Egypt if he's not first placed there as a servant. Think about this. We know that in the end, Joseph ends up ruling Egypt. But right now, if we just look at Joseph at 17, he's sold into slavery. If we just look at Joseph at 17, he's put into Potiphar's house to serve. Not for people to serve him, but to serve as a foreigner in a foreign kingdom. And we go, this cannot be God's plan. See, that's why we don't need to determine what's God's plan. In my mind at this point, God's placement of Joseph doesn't match the purpose of Joseph. So, see, even when we can't see the end, God is placing us in position for promotion. So we may complain about our position because it's still slavery. But of all the places Joseph could be a slave, he's sold to Potiphar's house. Now think about it. I mean, if you're going to be a slave, why not be put a slave in a high-ranking official's home where you're going to have the best to eat, where you're going to have the best surroundings? Even Potiphar's wife was very good looking. I mean, if you're going to work somewhere as a young man, it probably didn't hurt. You know, and so he's there, and he's serving in his season. He doesn't know that the palace awaits him. You got to understand, we know the end of the story, but he doesn't. It's just like you today. You don't know the end of your story. So what do you got to do? You got to serve in your season. If you're, you're at the police department, David, you're at the police department, serving your season. Who knows what the next step is? It's the job you hate. Maybe the job that you want to have. So even when we can't see the end, God is placing us in a position of promotion. And without the imposition of being placed in that exact home, Joseph would not be placed in the position to be used by God. So he runs Potiphar's house, and you know what happens? Potiphar's house succeeds. Why? Because he gave his best in a bad situation. What are you going to do tomorrow when you go to work? What are you guys going to do when you go to school tomorrow? When you start your day tomorrow? You know, it may not be your favorite position, but you know what? I can give my best in a bad situation. The character of Joseph, what I love about it, it produces results even when the surroundings of Joseph are not favorable. It's funny how when we're men of character, that we can change the environment around us by the way that we live. And that's what happens. Let me show you. Genesis 39 now. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian, who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. It sounds to me not like abandonment. It sounds like appointment. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. And when his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes, and he became his attendant. And Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted his care with everything he owned. And from the time he put in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. His whole house is prospering. All of his gardens are prospering. He's bringing in the biggest crops. All not because of anything Potiphar did, but because of the character of Joseph produced a result in the supernatural that came down and overflowed into Potiphar's house. And Potiphar recognized it was the hand of the Lord. And he said, you know what? You just manage it all, brother. You can have it all. And you know what happens? Is when godly men serve in places like that, everybody that stands around gets the overflow. See, we want to imagine our life dwelling in the promises of God, but we're forgetting the processes of God. For example, the Israelites were promised a land flowing with milk and honey. They had to be slaves in Egypt first. They wandered in the desert due to disobedience. They fled a powerful Pharaoh who was pursuing them with armies. They lost their faith in the face of giants that were inhabitants of the promised land. For many of them did not ever see the promise fulfilled. And what I realize that when I look at that story is that pain is part of the process. And pain reveals character. Pain does. You want me to share a basic example of this? How many of you got kids? Raise your hand. You got kids, small kids? Yep. Kids, small kids, don't matter. You've been there doing that. But when you got kids, stub your toe on the edge of the cabinet. Hit your shin on the trailer hitch as you're coming around the truck. Walk across a bedroom laced with razor-sharp Legos. And the pain will reveal your character. Because whatever comes out of your mouth will be what's in your heart. You say, I just say things when I get mad. Yeah. You need to get hold of that. Because if you can say things and respond when you get mad that you don't mean, can you do things that you did not mean to do? And you know what? Pain is revealing character. And every time I do something, I say ugly words and I say nasty things. Guess what? On the inside of me, there's some things that need to be whitewashed and brought before Jesus. And I don't need to give an excuse to things that I do. I need to realize that I do them, but I need to fix them. And pain reveals character. You got to watch whatever proceeds through your mouth. Pain will reveal character. And whatever you've entertained and tolerated on the inside will pour out. You say, oh, I just watched some of these movies. I ain't do the things that they do. It's not that bad, the things they say. And then the next thing you know, you do something and you say the things that they say. And then you realize this, that you can let the enemy infiltrate what's going on in here. One of the fruits of the Spirit, in other words, when we say fruit of the Spirit, it's a characteristic our life produces in response to having fellowship with the Holy Spirit. One of those is long suffering. And there ain't nobody standing in line to get it. Yeah. Amen if you want long suffering. Yeah. We don't want it. But yet it's a fruit of the Spirit that's produced when we have interaction with Jesus. Jesus had long suffering. Yet we want to hide from our hurt. We want to hide our hurt from people. We want to live a Facebook life where everybody looks like, we're living the 5-star life. We got the dream boat. They're not seeing all the things that happened before and after the picture. And then we want to blame God when it stings, yet it's Him who is using our suffering to bring about His righteousness. Let's go a little further here. Now, Joseph was well-built and handsome, much like myself. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted in my care. No one is greater in the house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" He doesn't say, "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against Potiphar?" He respected Potiphar, but he feared God. And there's a big difference. And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. He just separated himself from the temptation. And one day he went into the house to attend his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. And she called him by the cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand, and he ran out of the house. Because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to flee temptation. You don't entertain it for a moment, or you'll be in the middle of it. He left. And when she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her husband, or she called her household servant. She said, "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. And when he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and he ran out of the house." He ran out of the house. Why? Because he was fleeing the temptation. See, Joseph here, you think Joseph's life's been hard enough, right? 17, sold into slavery, laid in a cistern, gets sold off, goes and serves in Potiphar's house, doesn't ask questions, just serves his season. Doesn't know how long he's going to be there. And then in the middle of serving his season, he's great. Oh, he probably thinks, "Man, I really have it good to be a servant. I don't like the situation I'm in, but if I'm going to be in this situation, praise the Lord that He's given me great favor. Really out of my situation, this is not as bad as it could be." And then all of a sudden, Potiphar's wife starts lying on him. He's falsely accused of sexual assault. And then he's carried to prison. He's carried to prison. But he didn't do anything. But I thought this was God's favorite man. I thought this was the guy who everybody was going to bow down to. I thought this was the guy who had God's hand on him. Well, he does. But see, the process doesn't look like you think it's going to look all the time. That's why you can't judge today by what you're going to be years from now. He didn't do anything wrong. And I thought he had the favor of God when he did. But in order for Joseph to be in position to rule in the palace, he would have to be placed in prison. See, there's a pathway we're following here for Joseph's life. And we're following it. And it's going into some stinky places that Joseph didn't mean for it to go. But you know what it's doing? It's opening up a place for an Israelite to rule in Egypt. And it don't look like it's supposed to from man's eye. But it's exactly perfect for God's eye. And when all this has happened, you don't hear of a place where Joseph is actually beaten. You don't hear of a place where he's stoned. You don't hear, why? It's because God's letting the fire get close enough to him to burn away the things that are binding him, but not close enough to burn his skin. You know what I'm saying? It's the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thing. We're bound and we're thrown into the fire, and all of a sudden we're free and we're walking around. So God has let the thing that's tormenting us take away the thing that is hurting us and binding us, but He's not allowing it to touch our skin. And He's not even allowing it to touch our clothes because we don't even smell like smoke. And so Joseph has all these things going around in mass chaos for a guy who is favored by God, who's got great favor by God, who ends up with a position that is far above anybody else. There is one ruler in Egypt and ends up being Joseph, but he had to start off as a servant, and then he had to start off as a prisoner, falsely accused of things he didn't do. And Joseph doesn't just serve one day in prison. He serves years. Don't you think there were nights where he was like, "God has forgotten me. What have I done to deserve this?" And some of you, you're sitting in your situation right now, and you go, "God has forgotten me." And He's saying, "No, I'm just preparing the palace." And there's a process to get to the palace. And the process to get to the promise. In order for for Joseph to be in position to rule in the palace, he would have to be placed in the prison. Don't we love this verse here? This is another feel-good verse for us. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighted in his way. One version says the steps of the righteous are ordered by God. Oh, boy, that sounds good. That sounds good. But it doesn't, you're not looking at the steps that carried you through the mud. You know, you don't get to anywhere without some tough steps. If I want to get to a mountain, I got to go through the valley. I got to dig down in the mud. You know what? I got to climb vertically. I've got to wear my legs out. The steps of the righteous are ordered by God, but that doesn't mean you're not going to take some difficult steps. Sometimes the steps that we have to take, we don't plan for. We don't like. Unexpected loss, someone dies you didn't expect to die, someone leaves that you didn't expect to leave. All of a sudden you're single, you used to be married, all of a sudden you're raising kids by yourself, and you go, oh, how are these steps ordered by God? You know what? Sometimes the steps that we have to go through to get where God has carried us are difficult, but they're still the steps of God. And He's walking with us. He knew that was going to leave. He knew that was going to die. We love the verse because we know they end up in the promises of God, but before they can experience the beauty of the mountain, they have to walk through the mud of the valley. Your legs have to burn with the climb, and it may be even difficult to breathe at times. Joseph had no idea when his dreams would come to pass. He had no idea what exactly they meant. It was hard for him to see the daylight of God's promises from the prison of other people's false accusations. Let me tell you this, though, God's promise is not contained by other people's motives. It's prepared by them. Think about that. God's promise is not contained by other people's motives. It's actually prepared by them. What Potiphar's wife had meant to kill Joseph actually placed him in a position to rule Egypt. She thought, I'll get him in prison. Don't forget about him. He'll die down there. But it actually, what it did, it placed him in a position for success. Why? In the pain of the process, it produces the bounty of blessing. You may think you're alone and forgotten in a hole in Egypt, away from the thoughts of kings and the fellowship of your family. But actually what's happening the whole time is God is working it out. And you know what? A 17-year-old Joseph didn't need to rule Egypt. So it took some time to prepare a 17-year-old Joseph into the man that could rule with authority and with power. Let me show you just a little bit more here. Genesis 39:20. Joseph's master took him and he put him in prison, in the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. And He showed him kindness and He granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. It's amazing how the character of man can change the environment around him. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those he held in prison. He made him responsible for all that was done here. Do you see a pattern here? Joseph is favored by his father. He's favored by his master as his servant. And now he's favored by the prison warden. Why? Because he's a good man. The warden paid no attention to anything in Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. He gave him success. So let me think this through. Served as a slave in the house, prospering. Served as a prisoner in the prison, prospering. So who's better to serve in the palace? Sounds to me like the process is leading us to the promise. It's a windy road. It's dirty. It's messed up. We don't understand why we have to go through it. But when you serve in the process, you'll be prepared to serve in the promise. See, there's a lot of people in Israel that left Egypt with the promise of abundance, but never received it because they were not faithful in the process. Think about the children of Israel. They get up to the promised land. They say, oh, there's giants here. We can't do it. So they get sent back into the wilderness to wander till they die. Why? Because they could not serve in the season that God had put in front of them. So they negated their promise. So how many of you, you'll get up on Monday, you'll cuss that job that God's blessed you with. You'll complain about having to go. You'll burn up sick time as soon as you get it. And God said you have to be faithful to the process or you're going to forfeit the promise. Hate it. I hate this job. Oh, I go with that. Hate all these people around me. They're stupid. Everybody's dumb. And then God said, this is what I gave you. I gave you this to provide for your family. And they eat every night at a good table. And it pays your insurance, and it pays your car payment, pays your house payment. It's like, what more can I give you? Joseph spends years in jail. He interprets. Joseph being in jail put him in a place that it said the king's prisoners got put there. So when the king's prisoners were there, or the Pharaoh's prisoners, when they were there, the Pharaoh's baker came down there, and he had a dream, and Pharaoh's cupbearer had a dream, and he interprets both of them, and one of them didn't turn out very good for the baker, and one of them turned out real good for the cupbearer. He says, when you go back, he says, remember me. And you would think, you thought, man, I'm fixing to get out of here. I've done them a favor, they're going to get me out of here. Now, he gets to spend 2 more years. 2 more years in prison. They forget it. They actually just write him off. And has anyone ever been in a situation where your timeline and God's timeline didn't match? You've been in a position where you say, man, if I can just get through this, I'll be good, God. And he's like, you know what, you need to wait. Those that wait upon the Lord. Not those who force their way in through every locked door. Not those who choose relationships that lead to damnation. Not those who choose this pattern over this pattern to do my thing over God's thing. And when we get our timeline out of whack, have you ever been in a situation where it just didn't match? And it can be frustrating and difficult. But what I love about Joseph is he's left in prison. And he thinks, probably thinks he's forgotten. But you know what? God's timeline was still intact. And it can be frustrating and difficult. But Joseph's faith doesn't fail. You know what he does? He keeps serving with character and he keeps producing results. Finally, Pharaoh is awakened one night. And he's disturbed by 2 dreams in one night. And he needs to know what they mean. He realizes that they're significant, but he has no idea what they mean. And then, all of a sudden, someone remembers Joseph. Joseph is now 30 at this time. Let me show you what. Joseph interprets the dream. Look here. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream and no one can interpret it. But I've heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. And he said, I can't do it. He said, but God can. See, we don't live in our ability. We live in God's ability to come to us. And when we're obedient to him, all of a sudden we're given these things that used to would have been given to us. Joseph didn't have a skill of his own. He had a gift that God had placed on him. And so Joseph interprets the dream, because when your faithfulness collides with God's timeline, what I found is nothing can stop it. I'll be honest, man. I got laid off. It's been a little over 2 years. I've just been here not very long, about a year. And I got laid off my job that I had been working in for like 5 or 6 years. And it just didn't seem convenient at the time, to be honest. It seemed like a hassle. But had they not moved, I would have never moved. And so I didn't like it. But it put me in position to receive the promise that God had for my next season. And my job now is leaps and bounds better than my job I had then. And God continues to bless me through it. But I wouldn't have moved had God not given me the push. So when God's promise lines up with God's timeline, you know what? There wasn't anybody that could have applied for that job that would have got it because it was mine. So this is what happens to Joseph. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. And then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and he put it on Joseph's finger and he dressed him in robes of fine linen and he put a gold chain around his neck. Sounds a lot better than prison. A gold chain, a lot better than a prison chain. And he had him ride in a chariot as his second in command. And people shouted before him, make way. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. And then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, but without your word, no one will lift hand or foot in all of Egypt. And Pharaoh gave Joseph the name. There we go. You can tell me what it said. He gave him, as the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, to be his wife. So he gives him all these things, and he gives him a beautiful wife. And Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And some of you are complaining about your 3-month trial. And Joseph just went 13 years to the distance. He served in his season. What you're going through is just temporary. Joseph was 17 when his brothers sold him away. Now he's 30. 13 years was the process preparing him to inherit the promise. It's so amazing to me that God gave him the dream at 17, but he didn't give him the promise until he was 30. You got to keep living for that dream. I'm still living for the dream. I'm still believing that the best is yet to come. I'm still serving in my sins. I'm just going to be obedient. I'm going to walk forward. See, Joseph's success, though, is what's great about the stories of God. It's never just about you. promise is not to make Joseph great. The promise is actually to save Israel. And because Joseph is faithful to the process, he's able to play a part in the promise. See, it's about God's will greater than our will. And when you overflow a glass, anyone around catches the blessings that spill. What do I mean? Is when Joseph got in there and said, God, I'm going to serve you. I'm going to do whatever. I'm just going to keep being faithful. You know what happened? God's abundance overwhelmed the container that was trying to hold all that was going on. And Joseph was under there, and he became highest in command because he was faithful to God's process. God made him the master of his promise, and he ate at the king's table. He ate in Pharaoh's palace. He had the greatest wife there. He had the best looking. He let everybody down, and eventually, when the drought came, what did his brothers do? They came and bowed down for him. Thus, the promise was fulfilled. The things Joseph is able to do because he is faithful to the process is the overflow that God poured out because he was obedient. See, if you want the overflow of heaven, you have to serve the process on earth. When we align our will with the will of God, we catch the blessings he is dropping because we stand in the shadow of the Almighty. If I want God to use me, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put myself in place where he looks around and he cannot miss me. I'll be like Isaiah. I'll be like, here I am, God. Send me. Hey, God, up here. Let me go. I know it's going to be difficult a while, but eventually the palace is coming. And see, so you don't have to understand or even see the ending before you begin. You just have to be faithful in the process. So many of us want to be told victory stories. We want to hear about the success. Oh, I can't wait to be like you one day, Pastor. You got it. You got this thing. But you don't know the journey. You don't know the difficulty. Somebody told TD Jakes, they said, we want to be like you. We want to have what you have. You drive these nice cars. You have your own plane. You have all these things. And he said, yeah, but you remember a time when I didn't even have a vehicle because it got repoed. And then the church had to give me a vehicle. And it was so bad. It was so rusty. It was so terrible that actually they wanted me parking around the back of the church because it was embarrassed for me to drive it. And he said, and we put carpet in the floorboards because we were afraid it was so rusty our kids would fall through the floorboards. And nobody wants to see the journey. I just want to see the process. Sometimes when we're in meetings and stuff and everybody's complaining, you know, a friend of ours said this one time. He said, nobody wants to hear about the labor pains. They want to see the baby. That's the reality of it. We don't want the journey. We don't want the process. But the baby don't come without the labor. God's promise comes when we allow ourselves to serve this process. Randy, would you come? King, would you come? Some of you think you're in a holding pattern, but God is actually just holding you for the day of arrival. You think that you're stuck in a situation when the whole time you're not stuck, you're just planting. And in time, what's planted will come to life and it'll bloom. And what's bloom in time will produce fruit. You think you're stuck. Oh, I'm stuck. I'm just ain't going nowhere. No. You're being cultivated for a season. And in that season, what's going to happen is in one day, Joseph woke up that morning and he was in prison. And when he laid down at the night, he had a new wife, and he laid in the bed in the palace, fed the best food, in charge of all of you. Can you imagine in your mind what kind of promotion that's like? I can't imagine just going to work for them and say, hey, we're going to pay $5,000 for that. I'd be like, yeah, all right. But this has literally happened. I'm in the prison. I'm dirty. I'm nasty. I'm defeated. I'm broken. I'm beaten. I'm down to my last. I feel like there's no hope for me. And then in one day, I'm the highest in command in a foreign kingdom. Why? Because I served the process. I don't know how long the process is for your life. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know the situation. I know bits and pieces of things that people are dealing with, but I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you're fighting on the inside. I don't know what you've been fighting for a long time. But I will say this: if you'll hold on and you'll be obedient, God will take you from the process of the promise. Let's stand together this morning. There's some people here. I know that this morning you're dealing with some things. You got some hardships on your life. You got some things that you don't understand. You wonder how long it's going to be this way. There is going to be a day when it gets better. Sometimes when you got little kids, they get stuck in these patterns and they're annoying to be around. And they're hard to deal with and they're disobedient. But one day they'll be the hands that feed you. Just hang on. Just hang on.
worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawn. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship your holy name. You're rich in love and you're slow to anger. Your name is great and your heart is kind. For all your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship your holy name.
Bow our heads where we're at this morning. It's going to be honest. You say, Pastor, I'm just stuck in a process that I don't enjoy right now. There's difficulty in my life, and I need to see the light today. Help me to trust you. Help me to trust that the Lord is going to deliver me for the next season. If that's you, will you just lift your hand this morning? I'm not going to call you out. Yeah, I see those hands. Let's pray. God, I love you. I thank you, God, that you're working it out for our good. If we can't understand the windy road that we're on, but we can trust your hand that you're moving, that you've got good things for your children, that we don't have to lay and fall for, that we don't have to lay in our own self-pity, because you're actually leading us to something that's great. And if we could just catch a glimpse of where we were heading, Lord, we would be all that more motivated to keep pushing and to keep going and keep being obedient, God. Give us the endurance, God, that we need to run the race. Thank you for today, God. Thank you for the people that have been here today, that have heard this message. Help them to apply it to their life. Help them to remember it on Monday morning when life calls, God. And thank you for all that you're doing in this church, Lord. In your name I pray. Amen. My life group will not be meeting tonight. I know a lot of you have kids that are going to be starting school in the morning.